Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for... It's the Jingle Bells month. It's the Jingle Bells season. It's cold and frosty outside, and I don't want to leave you out in the harrowing cold. I could maybe leave you in the Harrow County instead, but I don't particularly want to draw the line at that, so let's get ourselves some partners in crime. Because straight from the halls of the Mountain King... I want him to help me not only manage the cold, maybe do a bit of mind management at the same time. He's here, but not just in voice, because he's going to come on and tell us a little bit about some TV that he's been working on. I've got Jay Cormier. Hello.
Hello. Hi there. That was a wonderful intro. It's like a guess who or a find the game name.
Find the game. It's literally like going to BGG. And putting your list of games that you've been involved in a list, and then just reading, just riffing off the back of that. You know, that's.
But wait, there's more.
There's two. I mean, we could just. I mean, I didn't.
No, that's an actual name of one of my games.
There is.
But wait, there's more.
Well, I mean, you could sing it instead. Then maybe a couple of singing monsters. Yeah. I mean, I tried to remember, it, but I couldn't get off the page. So. No, you can draw your own. You can draw your own conclusions from that.
Yeah, I don't think this town is big enough for the 2 to 4 of us.
Dear, I mean, I might have just to go and hide. I don't know whether to go to the normal fort or the bell fort. But anyway, either of those are quite shining for me. But you know, I don't want to continue this. I might end up in a headlock.
Yes. It seems like we're both partners in crime on this whole thing.
Yes, could be. I mean, we could get together, draw ourselves a grid, and then who knows, it could be a little bit of tic-tac-moo. You know.
I don't want to draw the line, but I think it's time to continue this.
I don't want to... You could end up at the undead, and the last thing we need is some kind of zombie slam kind of going on.
That wouldn't be good.
So I think we could try page 2.
That's good. That was pretty good.
Okay, so
I'm glad you were following my train of thought. That was wonderful.
Well, this is what happens. It's the kind of, people say I'm pathetic, but some people say I'm empathetic. There's a little bit of both. First of all, to all the listeners out there, thank you for listening. The reason that we do this is because there's quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games. I occasionally check, and it's like it's literally like chucking a rock into the Grand Canyon. There's absolutely nothing there whatsoever. And the second reason that we do this is because it is I like to speak to people. I have no excuse. This is where we are. I like to speak to people. I like to reach out to people, and and so Jay's on to have a chat. I want to take the clock kind of way back. Yeah.
I played a lot of board games growing up, family, for sure. My dad was a big advocate of like game night. I always loved game night.
Did you, I mean, when you're doing something like that, do you kind of, when you're playing games all the time, did you play like the same games again and again and again, or?
Yeah, for sure.
What were your favorite kind of ones that you played then?
Oh man, back then when it was families, whatever game that got us playing, I didn't care. It was Trivial Pursuit. There's a Canadian game called Pole Economy, which is like advanced Monopoly, basically.
Okay.
But I liked it because it actually had more decisions in it, and you had to buy stocks and stuff, so it was actually interesting for me. And, you know, Pictionary and all those kind of party type games. Those were mostly what we played back with the family. And there was, with my friends, I was playing games like D&D and Card Wars and Supremacy and all these kind of games until I learned about Magic the Gathering when I was in university. My friend Sen Fung Lim showed me Magic the Gathering. I'm like, this is amazing. What is this game? And I went full head into that game and just loved it. And then our mutual friend Errol, he got us into, at the time they were called German board games, and we started getting like, yeah. And we started playing them slowly. They've been transformed into calling them Euro games, but for a long time they're called German board games. It's funny. And so then and eventually we just like Sen and I were like, we're creative people. We could probably make something. Let's try making something.
What do you do at university?
Commerce.
Oh, okay. What kind? See, the thing is, right, from what I understand, okay, and this is my thinking behind this, is you do a lot of stuff yourself. You've got obviously your own like kind of podcast and stuff kind of going on, or your YouTube channel kind of going on. And we could sit and talk about, what was the first game you played, Jay? Or what is it, what's your inspiration for designing stuff? And I sometimes find it's nice to find a little bit away from the board games, just to find a little bit more about the person, because it explains to me a little bit about the decisions. And otherwise, I could just email you the questions or ask you to record them. So I wanted to...
Right.
Okay, so commerce, is this kind of retail commerce, general commerce, trading commerce?
Commerce, just general business, like macro and microeconomics and accounting and finance and statistics. And I did not enjoy it. It was like I was in high school and I didn't know what I had to do, but guidance counselors like, you got to start figuring out if you're going to university. And I just kind of assumed I was going to university because that's just kind of what smart people. I was smart back then. And that's what smart people do. You go to university. I'm like, and like she's like, well, what do you like in school? I'm like, well, I like the marketing class, and I like our business class. We had a business class and marketing. And she's like, well, you should go into commerce because obviously marketing business, that's what you should do. But she didn't pick up on the fact that why I liked those classes was because of all the creativity in marketing and all the creativity in running a business. Yeah. Those are the two aspects I really enjoyed. And she didn't pick up on that, and I didn't understand either at the time. And so I went into commerce, and I didn't like it at all.
Well, how old were you? Probably about, 13, 12, 13, 14 when you were making those decisions?
Probably like a year before university, so probably like 17-ish.
Wow. See where we, in Scotland, what happens is you have like your main subjects that you study about 14, 15, and then you do advanced version of those subjects when you're 16, 17, and those qualifications help you decide kind of whether or not you got the grades for the university or not, yeah? And so...
Well, I always had the good grades. I had straight A's on everything, so the grades were never an issue for me, so that was... I could go into whatever I wanted to in a way, pretty much. I could at least apply to whatever I wanted to, but I just had to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I just from that conversation, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to commerce. And,
are you gonna annoy me now? Are you gonna annoy me now and say you never studied?
Here's the story on that. I gotta tell you a story.
I want to hear this. Yeah.
There's a story about it was advanced algebra for university, and I went to I think a total of 2 classes the entire term.
Yeah.
I didn't write the midterm, and I didn't do any of the assignments.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting we had a well, I'll just say I got an A+ in the course because they right from the get-go they said your mark on the final, if it's better than your mark that led up to that, then that's your final mark.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I understand what you're telling me. I don't have to come to class. Great. I'll just study for the final, and that's my mark. And so I just studied for the final, and that was my mark. That was the last year they did that, by the way.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure there's a couple of people
nobody comes to our class.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody kind of turns up because they don't think just like, well, I'm going to do 5 minutes work.
But why? But in a way that shows how ridiculous and ineffective the current schooling systems are, like universities, where it's like, so I have all the knowledge, but I didn't have to go to university to get that. I could have read this bought this textbook on my own, just studied it. But obviously, it's that stupid piece of paper that we need.
What's that? That's good. Is it that line from Good Will Hunting where he says that he says you're going to sit and have a revelation when you're 50 years old that you could have got you could have just gone to the library and like paid like $4 in kind of late fee fines and got yourself an education instead of dropping $100,000 on a kind of a thing. I was like, yeah, okay, that's kind of.
How do you like them apples?
Yeah, that's still I mean, that clip seems to pop up on social media on like either like TikTok or all these kind of these kind of short things. You mentioned the rather wonderful and fantastic Sang-Fung Lim. You just mentioned his Sen in passing.
Well, he's my best friend. He's my best man at my wedding. He's my longtime friend. Yeah. He designed most of our games together.
How did you two meet then? Was it just like was it a long time ago? It's
funny, actually.
Yeah.
It's a funny story because I'm in university and I'm in residence, and we had a residence party where people coming over to the residence party. And then my neighbor was a friend. My neighbor in residence had some friends come over. One of them was Sen. And I don't remember this specifically, but Sen tells this story. That's funny. That apparently the first thing I ever said to Sen was, "Hey, do you want to see my Amiga?" Now, for those that aren't in the know, an Amiga was a computer system back in the day that was competing with Macintosh and with Windows. And it was a Commodore system, like Commodore 64 evolved into the Amiga. And at the time, the graphics and the sound capabilities were better than what IBM or Microsoft could offer. It was wild. So it was really impressive. And I guess I gathered from his discussion topics or whatever I was listening in on that this would be something he would enjoy seeing. But my first words were, "Hey, you want to see my Amiga?" It's like, "Yes, I do."
Of course,
and we were friends ever since.
There were some brilliant games on the Commodore Amiga. That was kicking about in here, and it was like we had like the Commodore 64, which was okay. And the music was pretty good. And we had the Spectrum, the Sinclair Spectrum, which I had a 48K Spectrum, and then I had a 128K Spectrum, and then the flashy boy up the road, he had the Spectrum Plus 3, which had the disc drive in it, which was like, because you remember the days of the Spectrum, it took ages to load. So we had the Plus 2, which had the tape recorder built in to the machine. And when that stopped working, you might as well kind of go home. But I remember my brother got an Amiga, and it was just like watching. He used to play games like all the games by the Bitmap Brothers? So he used to play like Gods and Speedball and
Speedball was amazing.
All those games at the time.
Specifically.
Yeah, ice cream. Yeah, a bit except
good memories. Wow.
Gods was fantastic, but there was also we got. I don't know if you had this over your way, but we had like Sensible Soccer for the first time.
I don't think so.
There was that was just one of the best. I mean, I
really enjoyed playing Lemmings, 2-player Lemmings, because you could cook up 2 mice to an Amiga. And so you could play 2-player Lemmings on the same screen at the same time. And it was, it still hasn't been replicated. I don't think you can do that today. It was wild. They were interacting with each other's stuff. It was great.
They've kind of dropped that kind of dual same screen kind of thing. Everything has to kind of be played online. It's very, very sad. I remember Lemmings, and everybody went daft for Lemmings for ages. And then I saw them recently. They tried to bring Lemmings to the phone. It just didn't work, Jay.
No, yeah, it's kind of like the point-and-click adventure. Mind you, I haven't played it. I'm intrigued to play the new Return to Secret Monkey Island.
Yes.
Because I love the Secret Monkey Island. But I remember playing like a Sam & Max game or something that they redid a while ago, but it's still many, many, many years after. And the patience is gone now for those kind of games, I find, unfortunately. I love those games. Those are my favorite games growing up with the point-and-click adventures. But it's funny how it's frustrating now. I don't know why.
Day of the Tentacle.
Yeah, those are good.
Oh, man. That was a good. The thing with these games was you either kind of got where they were going with the clues, or you literally went, right, I'm going to try the spaghetti with this thing. I'm going to try the knitting needle with this thing.
So you couldn't Google a walkthrough. Exactly. And so it took me forever in Monkey Island to really realize that to turn this bolt on thing, I needed to use an actual monkey because it's a monkey wrench. I'm like, come on. Why would I think to use a monkey on this? That's so weird.
There was the whole thing about get ahead in navigation, where you quite literally had to kind of like get ahead of somebody that was going to guide you in a particular way.
Right.
Welcome to the Nostalgia Podcast, where me and Jay are going to
talk just about board games.
We don't have to talk about. They've got enough. Look, there's enough. Look, you can go and listen to. I was going to say you could go and listen to the Board Game Snobs podcast if you wanted, but they kind of don't talk about board games an awful lot. Board Game Barrage, maybe they talk about board games an awful lot. If you're going to gear, it's just kind of like general conversation. So you got your friendship with Sen ongoing, okay? So were you? Did they become like your board game buddy then? Was that the person that you were playing a lot of board games with?
Yeah, because he introduced me to Magic, and him and another friend, Errol, we all played Supremacy a lot.
Yeah.
And that's basically, that was the first game I played that had like it's kind of like Risk, but it's like a battle war game. Mm-hmm. But it had this aspect of, there's 7 phases in the game, but you can only ever choose 3 phases every turn.
Wow.
Every round. And so that introduced me to this idea of like, wow, that's a decision. That's a really interesting decision. What am I going to do? And that's why I moved away from all of the combat-y type games and moved into this kind of interesting decision type game. The German or Euro games, as they're known now.
Did the part of that, did that form into the design, your design ideas that you followed?
I mean, maybe the concept of like, wow, that's a neat, I've never played this way before. Oh, and it's playing Magic for the first time. You're like, it's just fascinating. Like, oh, this is so cool. So I can do any of this and that, and this does this. That's so cool. And so I think I always want to have that feeling in all of my games that like, oh, you can do this in this game. That's so cool. Like in the Hall of the Mountain King, you're like, oh, wait, you play them on a pyramid and you activate all of them underneath it. That's a cool way to get resources. That's fun. So I always want to have something new or unique or, because sometimes I see this when I playtest some other designers' games where it's like, yeah, the game works and it's kind of fun, but it's like it's not really offering anything new in the world. It's the same kind of thing with just different colors and numbers.
Do you think?
So I don't want to design those games. I want to design cool games like Junkard or that's the Rock Paper Wizard. Like just games that are like, oh, it's just hand gestures. That's different.
Do you think it's difficult to find that uniqueness when there's so many games?
Of course, yeah.
Kind of getting out there.
That's what separates. Yeah, absolutely. But that's, to me, is always the challenge of like, what can we do that's different? Even if it's something that's, you could take something like Azul, which is like doesn't look that new. Like it's just tiles and stuff. But how you choose the tiles is new and fun and interesting, and how you place them. So it doesn't have to be like innovative like Dominion, where it's inventing a whole new genre of deck building. So that's obviously awesome. But that's extreme and rare. Like Hanabi did it, where it's like, oh wait, we can hold the cards away from us. That's interesting. Or The Mind, where it's like, wait, we can't even talk to each other, and we have to play this game. Like those are all nice new experiences that I haven't experienced before, and I love experiencing those things. But those are rare. I'm just talking about just something clever, neat, unique. Like Harrow County for me has a cube tower, which there's a bunch of games, not tons, but a bunch of games that have cube towers. But my cube tower is built into the box, so you actually drop your cubes into the box and they come out the front. And that's just like, even though that doesn't necessarily add anything mechanically to the game, the cube tower does, but not the fact that it's built into the box doesn't. It feels cool and more immersive because it goes through the image of a tree, which is relevant and important to the story of Harrow County.
Did you see Shake That City from AEG?
I did, yeah.
And it was clever. 2 things about that. I was fascinated by the way that it was, and secondly, I was absolutely fascinated by, I was kind of looking at it and going, I don't remember kind of seeing something like that before.
Yeah, I will take credit for that game existing.
Okay, right, okay, let's hear. I want to hear this story.
So, I don't know if you remember the pandemic. Do you remember that time period of our lives?
That
happening?
It kind of rings a
It happened recently,
yeah, I think so.
And so, we're almost a year into the pandemic, and I just start realizing that, like, hey, I'm not pitching games to publishers right now, and I imagine publishers are also kind of starving for pitching. So, I came up with that idea, and I pitched it to Sen, and he liked it. And we got another person on board that can help us with the technology side. And we created something called the Pitch Project. Yeah. And we ran pretty much a competition where any designer could submit a sell sheet. And then we had 750 sell sheets submitted. Wow. We hired a whole bunch of industry experts and 3 judges, industry experts, had to vote on every single one that was submitted, and rate them on the various criteria.
Yeah.
And then the top 50 sell sheets got to pitch live to over 40 publishers.
Wow.
On a specific day. And that game was pitched during this pitch project, and it got picked up by AEG.
So it's not like just a site. It's not like, I
didn't design it, but I take credit for it existing in the world.
It's like, do you want to pass the salt? Yeah, you shouldn't kind of just sugar that. You should actually shake that city. Oh,
yeah,
that's a really good idea for a game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool. Is it true? This is a sideways question, but this is what I do. Is it true that board game designers are generally quite not the best at pitching their games when it comes to there's some people that seem to be natural kind of P.T. Barnums. I'm going to change your life for this game. This is going to be the best thing. And other people are going to say, I'm sorry, do you want to play my game? I'm sorry. Do you want to play my game?
Of course. So I think I fell into this board game about 15 years ago. Sen and I decided to make a go out of it and try to, not that neither of us are full-time at it, but we let's make a go out of it. Yeah. And it is now something that consumes me, and I want my entire life to be about board game design and board game making, because every aspect of it I love. Yeah. It helps. It's got both sides of my brain, with the creativity and with the analytical and puzzle solving side, and then also the performance side. Like, I did a lot of theater in university days and post university, and a lot of performing. And so pitching to me is kind of like just performing. And so it's very easy for me to put on a show and understand that. And on top of that, I spent, 10 or 15 years in working in a national company here in Canada as part of their training designer and a facilitator. Mm-hmm. So I've over 20 years of working in training and designing, training and facilitating and emceeing stuff. So that to me is easy and wonderful, and I love it. And I understand, I've been to auditions as an actor. Understanding rejection as an actor is part of the process, and that's fine. And it's the same thing with pitching. Rejection is not bad at all. It's just okay, it doesn't fit with that publisher. Move next. Everything to me is very easy, but for sure, it's a huge challenge for a lot of people. It's especially if you're introverted, that is nerve-wracking to have to then talk about your game to other people. But there are agents out there that you can get that can help pitch your game, and they take a certain percentage of that forever. But if you don't have that skill set, that's something you could do, or you have to figure out a way to work on that skill set, and that's just by doing it if that's of interest to you. But if it's too scary, then you got to find another solution if you want your games pitched.
Are you ever given kind of help and advice to people that have said, "Look, can you just help me pitch this?"
So I've got a few games signed by, and it's not because they need help. It's just because I had access. Mm-hmm. That was that issue, because I go to the Gathering every year, which is a big invite only convention that's put on by Alan Moon, designer of Ticket to Ride and whatnot. And so that's a 400 people, and tons of publishers go and tons of designers go, and it's a wonderful time every year. And so that often in the past I've had other designers say, "Can you pitch this for me?" And I'll only do that if I really believe in it or love it or whatever. I don't really do it too much anymore, but I used to, and I got a few friends' games signed because of that. So that's nice. But I have recently started my own online game design program.
Okay.
One of my brands I own is called the Fail Faster. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Fail Faster playtesting journal that I had on Kickstarter a few years ago. It's a journal that kind of guides game designers on how to take the right notes when they're playtesting.
Yes.
And so I took that brand, Fail Faster, and now it's turned it into an online game design program where you can learn about game design. And the first course is called the Intro to Game Design, and it's 5.5 hours worth of 30 some odd videos that you get to watch, and it's wonderful, and you get to make a game through it. The next course is going to be advanced, and then the next course after that is going to be about pitching and self-publishing. So I don't have those two ready, but it's coming.
With something like that, do you want to think about kind of pushing it further into kind of it's more in a kind of an actual kind of live kind of teaching? I mean, one of the things the pandemic did do was it taught that you could do an awful lot of things kind of online through like kind of Teams calls and Zoom calls and things like that. So is the next thing when you're running courses, is that to say, well, let's actually maybe get 30 people in a room, give me some money.
So,
and then
so a couple things on that. Starting in the new year, as part of my online game design program, I will be doing weekly calls where anybody that's part of my program can join in and they can ask any question, and I can help them with anybody that comes on with whatever. So it could be about pitching, for example. And secondly, there's an event in Oklahoma this year called TokenCon. It's a smallish convention, but they're flying me in as the guest of honor.
Wow.
And, one of the things we've brainstormed to do is we're doing kind of like a Shark Tank Dragon's Den type of thing.
Yeah.
Where people are going to pitch live to me their game, and I'm going to give feedback about their pitches.
Is that quite a nerve-wracking event for yourself? Because I mean...
No, not for me. Again, remember, I have performance background. Like, I've done theater. I've done over 10 years of like murder mystery dinner theater. I've got almost 20 years of doing a one-man kids show that I've done for 20 years. I'm
just thinking about maybe giving somebody kind of direct feedback when maybe their idea isn't as fully formed as maybe they think it is.
Then to me, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have the same goal as you do. I want to make your game look as great as it is or can be. And I hope and assume you also want that. So here's some wonderful thoughts and directions for you to consider. We haven't figured out if I'm going to play a character that is, a bit more biting, because that's sometimes more entertaining, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or if I'm just going to be helpful and be like, hey, you should consider this. I'm not going to tell you to do anything. You do whatever you want. It's your thing. But you should consider this. This space should be, you should pitch this way or this. I got really disinterested when you started going on and on about the background and the lore. That does not interest me as a publisher. Yeah. I want to know more about this. So hopefully they walk away with going, oh, okay, great. Yeah, I can't wait to work on this pitch better.
So, I mean, you mentioned doing, like, obviously the entertainment kind of side. So what is it you're doing as a day job? Are you involved in that as an actual day-to-day job? Is that what you do?
My day job right now is working in video production for a big national company where we work on training videos and advertising type social media videos for our company. And
do you get in front of the camera for that then?
I have often, yeah. I'm very famous in my national company. I can go to any of the stores and they're like, "Hey, you're that guy in the video."
Are you the guy that talks, gets in front of the video and says, and remember to keep those fire exits clear and keep that first aid box kind of stocked up and kind of stuff like that?
That kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I'm also fairly humorous, so I've been in a lot of funny videos. We have a lot of acronyms, so I did this whole video where I just used all the acronyms in like one giant, paragraph. And in an effort to try to make them easy, let me go through them. And I just go through them like super fast and stuff like that. So it's really funny.
Like the kind of the Micro Machines guy from
the... a little bit.
The 1980s. So are you a singer as well as kind of like an all-round entertainer?
No. I mean, I have actually been on stage and have sung, and people have come in an audience, and because I've been in musicals as part of the theater background, and many musicals, but I would say I'm always a background guy, but for once I had a couple times I had a lead role, which is weird because I'm not a singer.
Mm-hmm. What about the acting side? Is that where you're more kind of
I love it. It's fun. Yeah, I especially the comedy stuff. I love the comedy stuff. And I did a lot of murder mystery dinner theater stuff, and those were all super cheesy, but very fun and funny. You get to play all sorts of different characters and character types, which is just hilarious, and it's goofy, and I loved it. I don't do it anymore because it's not. I had to move from Ontario, which is a province in Canada, to British Columbia.
Did they just
for my job? Did
they just not have the murder mystery scene kind of there anymore in British Columbia?
They didn't. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit of a shame. So how are you scratching the kind of the creative itch at the moment with regards to kind of like rolling and acting and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do... when I got here to Vancouver 15 years ago, I actually started up a comedy troupe to do some comedy. And I did that for 2 or 3 years, and we performed in bars and stuff, and that was great. Mm-hmm. And then I started getting more into board games, and I'm finding that I get a similar satisfaction out of, whether it's hearing about people playing my games, or they're posting pictures about my games, or there's reviews about my games online. That gives me a very similar satisfaction internally as does performing. Just this like, hey, I created something artistically, and other people are appreciating it. That fills that void, that niche, that need that I have. So that's game design has fulfilled that. And now I'm also a publisher. In the last few years, I've become a publisher with Mind Management and Harrow County be my first 2 games I'm publishing, and that also fills those same needs as far as like people saying nice things about. Fortunately, I made good games so far, so that's helpful.
Are you quite selective in the games that you're going to be putting out there under your own name?
Oh, well, yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, at the very least, my when I decided to become a publisher, it was because the publisher that had the rights to publish Mind Management went under, so we got the rights back to us, and it was Matt Kint, the creator of the comic book Mind Management, said, "Why don't we just publish it ourselves? Wow. I'm an artist and a graphic designer. I'll do all that. You publish it." So we made a deal, and I became a publisher. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to be a publisher, I want to hang my hat on something. And the hat I decided to hang on was the fact that maybe all the games I make should be based off of creator-owned comic books. Because this first one is, so that'd be cool if they all were. And so I decided that's why I'm called Off the Page Games, because there's off the comic book pages and into the board game world. And so this Harrow County and Mind Management are both based off of really awesome comic books that I love.
Because the thing about Mind Management is it's kind of striking in how fierce it is with the artwork. There doesn't seem to be compromise. There's not compromise on there. It's kind of like, this is our artwork. Here you go. And it's kind of like there's a rawness to it, and it's kind of like there's not an overproduction to it. It's almost like there's bits that I like where it's kind of like, this guy looks like he's had 20 minutes to sketch and fill this in, and I like that. I like this kind of, I've committed this to the page and I've not done it 27 different times in order to kind of make something happy or something like that.
Yeah, that's Matt Kent's style, man. I love it. I had 2 pieces of his artwork hanging in my office right now. Yeah. Even before I made this deal with him, so I've loved his style of art, the scratchy kind of version of art. It's wonderful. Yeah, I would say that even though some of it, like you're saying, I agree with exactly what you're saying. And I'll say one thing though about the board of the artwork of the board itself. That one actually had a lot of I don't know if compromise is the right word, but it had a lot of challenge. It was the most challenging thing Matt has ever had to create, because it was, out of everything in the entire game, the board had certain functionality requirements, which is something he's never had to deal with in art. Yeah. You don't have to have anything, there's no requirements of art generally, except for your own internal desires of what you're trying to express or say. Mm-hmm. But it's not a functionality aspect. And so this game board has, there's 2 little features in every little square location on this board, and they need to be prominent. They need to pop. And when he first showed me his first board design, like, I absolutely hated it. It was so terrible. And I was very worried. I'm like, this is not good. But he provided some other art at the same time. So I'm kind of saying, hey, this is good. This is good. Mm-hmm. Now for this, and I start kind of dancing around it, because I'm like, he's like somebody I really admire and respect. Yeah. I'm trying to say, like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just trying to say, so, you know how some pieces, of your art I can hang on a wall? It doesn't feel like this is something I would want to hang on a wall. Like, I'm trying to beat around the bush, and he interrupts me, and he's like, Jay, I don't like it either. I'm like, oh, okay. Phew. And we talked about it a bit more, and once he finally got everything, he's like, I think I have an idea. And he did what he did, and I love it. It is very beige and tan colored, but it's 100% on purpose, because it needs to be that. It needs to be this muted city background so that those features really pop. When you need to find a reconnaissance parrot, you need to be able to see all 5 of them very quickly. Yeah, yeah. And they do pop.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like I found this old comic book and it's been sitting there for a while and the pages are a bit faded and I don't know what I'm kind of getting myself in for. The language, even the language on the board, is kind of it's very evocative. It's like a challenging. This is kind of like an espionage simulator. There's the...
Yes.
I love
the why the word game is in quotes.
I love the little things in the side with just the kind of... It was the... depending on the lens that you were using to kind of view the kind of... It's almost like the 3D thing. It's kind of like making... It's kind of... What do they call it? Breaking the fourth wall. It's kind of like, we're very, very much aware we're a game. Normally it's like...
Or are we?
Yeah, exactly. This is a game this is a game that's saying, well, there is a theme here, but, are you sure it's a theme? We could be the theme, or this could be the real thing, or is everything around you as part of the game? Yeah. I kind of really, really appreciate kind of breaking kind of out there, especially when you see games where they're like fitting a theme and the components and the mechanics and everything like that are fitting their best into the theme, and you're just like going, this is as loose as it's getting. The thing I liked about mind management is like, this is a box, okay? Just come on, put it on the table and kind of get it kind of played.
Matt and I had very aligned sensibilities about how we wanted this to come out. We're both additive in our suggestions, so like this is greater than the sum of either of our wildest wishes, because we got to put two creative people together. It's way better than either of us could have individually imagined.
And there's also the things about you've got the additional kind of pieces in the box. It's like normally when I speak to people about designing a game, I say to them, well, is there stuff that you cut out and left out? And it's like, yeah, sure. And it seems that you guys went, yeah, we cut it out, but we just put it in this...
Yeah, you still got it.
This white box over here.
14 boxes of them, yeah.
Which is kind of...
Yeah, it's wild. We kept playtesting the game, and when you playtest with the same people, and one side, in a one versus many game, if one side loses, they're going to give you a lot of feedback about why they lost and what they could do better if they had this tool or that tool. And so next time we play, we add this tool or that tool to the game, and then the other side would lose. And they're like, well, you know what I could use? I could use this tool or that tool to help me. And we just kind of kept making it bigger and bigger. And then when we play with a new group, and ironically, it happened to involve name drop here. It happened to involve Matt Leacock and Evan Derrick, some other big-time game designers.
Yeah.
And it kind of broke their brains. And they're like, this is too much. Like, it's too steep. And we're like, oh, shoot. It's good, though, just so you know. You can't get there from here. But so we stripped it all out to its core, and then we put all these things in a little shift packages.
And
brilliant.
And then moving on to, like, Harrow County.
Mm-hmm.
Was that, I mean, again, it's kind of like, it's not as obviously as out there in terms of the art, I would say. But obviously you've gone for like the mechanical kind of difference in there. I mean, is this the plan with Off the Page? Is it going to be, we are looking for things that are going to be different, we're going to be looking for things that are going to be a bit more challenging, or just something that you don't normally see kind of every single day from something that you get from a shelf? That
is generally my game design philosophy for just any game I'm part of. Is just, it's got to have some, like if I'm designing with a partner and we kind of come up with the concept, I'm like, yeah, this will probably work, but it's not clever enough. It's not new enough. It's not like, how can we turn this on its head a bit? And then we'll, brainstorm until we come up with a cool thing. We're like, yeah, that is cool. So same with Off the Page games. It also kind of is a synonym for like Off the Page is kind of like table presence. It just jumps off the page at you. And so I want all my games to have some sort of cool table presence, whether it's, the real cool screen in my management, it's really visual, or the box has to go on the table for Harrow County because it's got the cube tower built into it. That's part of it, having table presence. But then, I want it to be, I just want it. I know I can tell from my experience in being around in the board game industry that a lot of the games that do well are because they have something innovative and that people want to check it out. Like, I got to check that game out. That's cool. And to me, that excites me the most. I buy games that have just a cool concept to it. I'm like, that's cool. I want to buy that game. That sounds really cool. Like even something like Looney Quest, which is, more of a, family game, but it's like everyone has to draw on these transparencies and then you line it up to this kind of puzzle maze thing to see if you made it through the maze or not. I'm like, that's cool. I've never seen a game like that before. I want to play those kind of games and I want to make those kind of games that are just out there. And I have some lined up. I'm just waiting for, my next game is already signed with a comic book creator, and I'm actually not designing it. Sen and one of his other partners, Alara, are designing it.
Wow.
But it's also super different, and again, asymmetric, and has some really out there ideas to it, which is wonderful. And then the next game after that, which is, I'm waiting for them to sign, so I guess it's not official yet. But if they sign it, man, that's way out there, and it's a really cool idea. I've never seen in a board game. I'm super excited.
You still sound very excited in terms of the hobby anyway. I mean, are you still seeing kind of new things that are happening and things
all
that
the time,
games are out there just now that you're kind of like going, yeah, I'm going to get this to the table. This is really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, that's what gets me excited is the newness of things. Like, that's really neat. That's a really cool thing. So, yeah, when we were offered, Sen and I were asked to pitch an escape room kind of game, but based on an IP, how would we do it? And we came up with a system for Scooby-Doo of how it would work, and then we won. Our pitch was the best, and so that was, to us, really fun. So we made a escape room Scooby-Doo game, and then now that series is continuing. It's called the Coded Chronicle series. So we did a Shining game, we did a Goonies game, and we're just wrapping up our 4th game in that series. But that's, to me, it's just like, that's a new way to do escape rooms that I haven't seen, where each character has a little narrative guide, and you interact. It's just like a point-and-click adventure, like Zach McCracken or whatever, where you actually, this character, look at this, and you add the look number, which is like maybe a 1, you put it in front of an armoire, which has a 3-digit number, so 1457. So you look up 1457 in one person's book, and it'll tell you what they see. And sometimes it makes you reveal new cards or new tiles or open envelopes. It's a really fun and awesome system, so we're having a lot of fun with that.
So, other things that you're having fun with. What's next? What are you doing at the moment with yourself to keep yourself busy? I'm just probably should ask the question: do you ever sleep? Because you seem to be constantly.
It's not as fun to sleep. It's not as fun to sleep. It's more fun to do stuff.
But eventually you're going to get payback on that. So
it's true.
But speaking of payback,
interesting segue. I pitched an idea a year ago to a friend of mine who's produced a few TV shows.
Yeah,
and he liked it, and so we went forward with it, and we just filmed it 2 weeks ago. So it was a TV show the concept is having stand-up comedians play board games. And while we've had shows like Tabletop with Will Wheaton on before, which is wonderful, my pitch was like, we won't concern ourselves with explaining rules. There's so many other videos and resources out there to help you understand how to play a game. That's not the purpose of this.
No.
The purpose is to show how fun it is to play this game. Man, that game looked like a lot of fun to play. Let's get that game. We'll have to watch some other video to explain how to play it, but it looked like they had a lot of fun. They were joking around and good stand-up comedian jokes and stuff like that. So, we filmed it and it was a very awesome production. I was just really happy and impressed with the level of professionalism by everybody. We had 2 videographers and a director, a sound person, 2 grips, a social media person doing behind the scenes footage, 5 stand-up comedians. It was wonderful. It was really cool. So now we're in the editing phase. So it'll be out mid next year. We did it through some Bell, which is a national cell phone and TV and communications company here in Canada.
Yeah.
And they offer grants for helping provide content for their local, not local, it's national, for their channel that does focus on something in the community. And so for this, we had to add some scenes of us in the community preparing for this show. But the good thing about this is that we also own the content. They have a 90-day exclusive window to air it on their channel. And then after that, we can do whatever we want with it. And we will be editing it down and getting rid of all the community stuff and editing it and making just this payback show. And it's called Payback because at the end of the show, they get to vote on which of the comedians should get payback based on maybe winning the game or based on actions they did in the game that hurt them. And that player has to do something shameful at the end, just during the credits, like wear a A-frame and walk around downtown or something.
Is it something you could turn into a series then?
That's the concept. So we want to try to pitch it to like the Geek and Sundries or Funny or Die or something like that.
Yeah.
And try to get it as an ongoing show.
Yeah. Because I think one thing that I think is slightly missing in the kind of the tabletop arena is the kind of the entertainment for the entertainment type thing. Now you can go, I mean, Paula Deming does a really good job with the kind of the skits and the sketches that they do. I mean, she's really good at what she does. And you've obviously got podcasts like, This Game is Broken and things like that. But and
We're Not Wizards. I've heard of that one. That was like really good.
I don't know. I think they're lying about whether or not they're a wizard. But there seems to be some. I mean, it's almost like I see there's a lot of short form kind of comedy stuff. And I think TikTok's been very good for kind of introducing kind of short form kind of comedy where people make kind of little skits. But I think it's like one of these things is like, I think the board game audience kind of, they want instructional videos, they maybe want reviews, they want maybe playthroughs. And I think they're getting on the cusp of saying, actually, could we have some entertainment based around the hobby because of how the hobby is getting? Yeah. I'm absolutely perplexed as to why there's not some kind of Magic the Gathering kind of TV show,
like a poker kind of thing.
Yeah, like a kind of a championship that ever always, that'd be like a 5-minute kind of skit or sketch, or people talking about, different things, or then having kind of like a Poker Stars kind of, and now let's go into the tournament, and them actually filming them in a proper kind of environment, especially with them, the kind of the money behind it. That always just bamboozles me because, as to why we're not kind of doing that. And I think I'd like to see kind of more entertainment stuff, but I know that when you see YouTube comments of people that have tried entertaining stuff, if it's comedy's incredibly difficult to do.
That's hard too. I can imagine with Magic it would be hard because you'd have to be a diehard Magic user to be able to follow, because there's so many cards coming out all the time.
Oh yeah. That,
like, what does that card do? Like, you'd have to pause the video and please explain it to me because I don't, for every single card that they had in their hand, it'd be whereas poker is like everyone knows how to play it basically. You know what I mean? So it's a lot easier to just start watching and understand their motivations of what they're trying to do. Where Magic would be so hard. That's probably, I imagine, why that's the hurdle you'd have to try to figure out how to solve, I guess.
It'd be almost like there'd be a freeze frame and you could say, okay, let's have a little 5-minute session of why this person's got this cards here and why they're going to play that card kind of thing.
And then that becomes less entertaining. Like, the more you explain, the less entertaining it gets. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we found that we're trying to, in our editing, we're going to figure out where that balance is so that our show is more entertaining than it is informational.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
How much as a viewer do you have to understand how the game works for you to understand and have fun with this show? That's what we're trying to figure out.
It's kind of interesting. I don't know. You might actually get access to the BBC over in lovely Canada, but they've got a show on at the moment called Traitors, and it is literally Werewolf in a big format. So what they have is they've got everybody up at they've got about 15 people up at a Scottish mansion, and they've decided at the beginning of it that they've got either the faithful or you've got traitors. So they've got 3 traitors. So every single day they kind of do tasks to win money to build up this prize pot. And then they have a meeting and they decide to try and call out one of the people who's a traitor. And if they get it right, that person just disappears. But at the end of every day, the traitors get to decide. They get to murder one of the other contestants. Not realistic. I mean, it's not real Scotland. It's not like they kill.
It's not real murder.
They don't kill and eat them or anything like that. But I watched the first couple of minutes. My wife turns to me and goes, "You got to see this show on TV." And I saw the concept. I went, "That's Werewolf then." Big format. But you're right.
Because I guess that's free or open source or whatever they call that.
I don't know. I think they've just kind of taken a concept and just kind of I guess, is it not down to that thing about kind of, I guess, when they talk about patenting kind of game mechanics and stuff like that, how it's really, really difficult to do. But I think, somebody on the production team's been playing lots of Werewolf and they've just went, I've got an idea for a TV show and we don't have to pay anybody the rights for kind of anything at all. Which is interesting. Which is if you can get it, I don't, obviously it's on BBC. I don't know how worldwide they do it, but it's been interesting just to see how normal people who obviously aren't board gamers kind of interact to being put into a game which just plays like, a card game, and how they kind of, psychologically it's really interesting about the type of people they pick out who they think they're the traitor, and the type of people they automatically think they aren't the traitor. There's some really strange kind of social conditioning going on, but it's worthwhile.
That sounds fun.
It's really good. So when is the Payback game? When is that going to be out there in the wild that people can see?
We have to edit it.
Yeah,
we have to edit it down, and then I think we have a deadline at the latest as April to have it given to Bell, and then once they air it, they've got 90 days of exclusivity in Bell, so only Canadians can watch that. But that's the one that has all the community extras. We had to fill this extra little storyline around it, and I'm actually in it as a producer. It's the story of us making the show, basically, which is very thin and loose, just enough to accommodate their needs and ensure we get the grant money.
Yeah.
And but then after that, we're not sure because it's not picked up by anybody. So once we have it, we'll re-edit it down to what we actually want it to be, and then we'll pitch that to people.
That would be cool. That sounds like a lot. That would be cool. So you could talk again in a year, and you could be like talking about wrapping up the kind of the paperwork to get the first series on the go, which would be pretty excellent.
And hopefully filming season 2. That'd be wonderful.
That would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
It would be, yeah.
That would be wonderful.
It was so because of the grant, we were able to pay everybody, all the crew, all the talent, and treat them really nice, not just crappy pay. Like actually pay them what they deserve. So it was, to me, that's one of the best things about being a publisher is just paying people to do work. It's like that they like. It's the same thing for this. So it was just great. And then funny coincidence was that last week I was on back in Vancouver. Because I filmed in Ontario, but I was back in Vancouver, and through some weird happenstance, I found myself on the set of a Hallmark TV movie.
Oh my goodness!
In which they wanted to use my board games in their movie.
Really?
And because the movie is about 2 board game designers who fall in love.
We're there. We've arrived.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I now know what it's like for when scientists, like real scientists, watch a movie that has movie science in it and they're pulling their hair out. That's not how it works. I felt the same way when I was watching a scene being filmed, and it was so funny. They're in a big office with cubicles, and as a game designer, she's working in a cubicle. And already that's hilarious. Yeah. And somebody comes up to her and is like, "What you working on?" And she's like, "I'm trying to figure out the new board layout for the new game." And she's like, "What do you have?" And he turns his laptop around and is like, "What I was thinking was maybe if we had like edges, spaces around the edge of the board to move, kind of like in Monopoly." And she's like, "Well, yeah, but what would you do in the middle?" He's like, "I don't know. What do you got so far?" And she's like, "I was thinking something more classic, like Chutes and Ladders or chess."
Wow.
And this is the real conversation two, board game designers who are about to fall in love are having.
All you hear is you shouting from the corner, "Don't mind me, I'm just dying slowly."
And so apparently, in some other scenes, they actually played my games in some of their scenes. And the assistant props guy who I was talking to, he had played my management and loved it, so thankfully that was nice. Yeah. And he was pretty much acting like I would have acted if I was on the set, because they were moving pieces willy-nilly around the board.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like, no, you don't, that's not how you move that. You can't move that character. That's an immortal. You don't move immortals like that. And then like the recruiter person would randomly just pick up a feature card and just start showing everybody as if she, like, look what I'm playing. And he's like, "No, you don't show card." And he was getting frustrated, which to me was hilarious. So that's called Game of Love, and I'm not sure. I assume next year.
Oh wow, that'll be, and potentially it's one of these things that's going to end up in like Netflix in about a year's time or so.
Yeah, so it'll probably be the first Hallmark movie I ever watch.
Well, you'll probably get told about it as well. They're not going to will you not get like some kind of press release from them to say that, So there's a blog that, I mean, I'm not being funny, but I mean, if you're talking about your ongoing kind of, board game educational courses, I mean, I think there's an entire class here for what happens when you're much loved board game ends up in a Hallmark movie. I think that's a kind of
they made a big poster too of at least the one I saw was Harrow County, and it was up just in the hallway of their fake business, as if they made that game. It was wonderful.
Wow. That's kind of cool. You can't kind of buy that kind of advertising, can you?
No, yeah. They were asking me how much I charged for all, having all. I'm like, no, you can have it. I don't want it. I'm not charging anything. This is awesome. I love it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So
if you want to keep an eye on the game of love, but also more importantly the Payback Game TV. Where, if they want to keep an eye on you in general, where do you exist on the internet webs, Jay? Where can we find you? Yeah,
pretty much at Off the Page Games on any of the social platforms.
Awesome.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy, just like that.
And that game design course I mentioned earlier, for those interested in that, that's at failfaster.ca.
And we'll make sure, obviously we're going to make sure that all those links go into the show notes, so that we've got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us in all the different worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for the daily races. We're on, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and just everywhere. We've got a blog that we write reviews on, and we've got kind of like this other website that does podcasty type things, and you can find us in all those wonderful things. And if you have listened along and you've liked what you've listened to, then please go to the Apple Podcasts and drop us a review or a rating. And if you are going to give us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed. But at the same time, please don't give me 1 star because it will make me cry. Give me something in the middle, average, like a 5, because it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average is rather wonderful, rather fantastic. Jay Cormier. Thank you very much. Yay! Thank you for coming on. It's really
thanks for having me. I always love talking about my favorite subject. Me.
Well, I've got two more questions.
Yes.
The first question is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Jay?
No, we're all just humans, man. We're all just humans. There's nothing magical about what we're doing. That's actually the whole ethos of Fail Faster. Yes. You don't have to be... My thing I hate most about people say in their life is like, they try something creative and they're not good at it. They're like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to be a sculptor. And I'm like, no, don't say that. There's nothing magical about what... It's just that person who's good at sculpting has done it for a long time, and they failed just like you many times until they got to where they're at. So just if you enjoy it, keep doing it.
Your first podcast will be awful, as I once said.
Yeah. Don't strive for perfection. Just strive for getting stuff done and just putting stuff under your belt and getting experience.
Absolutely. And the second thing is to ask Jay to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Jay.
Goodbye, Jay.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll sixes, make something awful, and until the next time, just mind your management. Goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.